Coming up on Advocate Today, amid a flurry of anti-drag bills and protests, we'll look at how it's impacting the lives of people living in those states. Welcome to Advocate Today. I'm Tracy E. Gilchrist. We begin with new shocking video out of Ohio where hundreds of far-right neo-Nazis stormed a park hosting a drag queen story event. The clash occurred at Wadsworth Memorial Park outside of Akron. The extremists chanted slurs and were joined by right-wing Christian groups. They were met by LGBTQ+ supporters who showed up to protect the attendees. Sieg! Heil! Sieg! Heil! There will be! There will be! There will be! Oh, pedophiles, get the rope! Pedophiles, get the rope! Why more condition? Why more solution? Police set up metal barriers before the event and allowed the agitators in. Around 15 children were present for the rock and roll humanist drag queen story hour. Conservatives across the country are pushing bills to outlaw or restrict these kinds of drag show performances in the presence of children. But advocates say the bills are discriminatory against the LGBTQ+ community and could affect the community's safety, livelihood, and rights. The Advocate Channel's Lucy Kavanaugh reports.
Drag actually saved my life.
For Timothy Sherwood, drag is more than just a job.
I feel beautiful, I feel ethereal, I feel colorful, I feel bright. And that is the last step.
He left a teaching career in Dallas to perform full-time as Kylie O'Hara Fatale.
Kylie showed me who my true kind of self was, my true voice.
But that voice could soon be silenced in Texas, which is considering at least 4 bills seeking to restrict drag performances.
If these bills become law, my entire livelihood is at risk. I don't even want to imagine a life where I can't be the person that I've worked so hard to finally figure out who I am. To fully have all that just ripped away, it would be soul-crushing.
Grown men dancing in their underwear in front of children, asking for money.
Texas State Representative Brian Slayton says the bills are designed to protect minors.
I think it's important to protect children from any adult that wants to sexualize them. Right now, the only group of people that's trying to sexualize children are the drag performances.
Drag has become a target amongst conservatives, with shows and even literacy events like Drag Queen Story Hour sparking protests and targeted attacks from right-wing extremist groups in some states.
The book is called Love the World by...
Texas is just one of at least 18 states seeking to restrict drag. Rights groups say it's part of a broader attack on the queer community.
We're seeing states across this country in a race to the bottom in terms of attacking LGBTQ+ folks. Over 400 bills attacking our community have been introduced, and it's only March of this year.
Many of the proposed bills would make it illegal for an establishment to host a drag show unless it's classified as a sexually oriented business.
If somebody came in and said today, you're a sexually oriented business, that would be it.
You'd have to close your doors.
You'd have to close my doors. Yeah, there's no way.
Jay Anderson runs a distillery and grill near Fort Worth, Texas.
We're going to keep the show moving right along.
His business has already taken a hit when an attempt to host a family-friendly drag brunch featuring his son as a performer resulted in protests.
I'm here to support people that don't indoctrinate and groom little 8-year-old kids.
This map tracks basically all the death threats that we received.
Thank you guys again.
This drag show causes me to close my business and I lose all the money I put into it, but I save one kid who doesn't kill himself. I don't care.
Some critics say the bills are too broad and could target transgender people by defining drag as the act of appearing in public in a gender different than the one assigned at birth.
The problem is that a lot of the public, especially in Republican states, isn't able to make the distinction between what a drag queen is and what a trans woman is. Because I'm trans and can be perceived as a drag queen in a public space, like, what does that mean for my gigs?
Dahlia Knowles is a Dallas-based pop singer who performs under the name Lorelei K. She worries the broadly written legislation would categorize her as a drag performer simply because she's a transgender woman.
I'm not impersonating a gender. This is my gender. The idea that like I have to perform at sexually oriented businesses whenever my act isn't sexually oriented, it's just like absurd.
So it's not just about drag?
No, this is just the tip of the iceberg. They're trying to eradicate transgender people from the public eye. It's not a debate whether or not I exist. I do exist. Like, I'm here. And the message that I'm receiving is that I'm not wanted here.
Lucy Kafanov, CNN, Denver.
LGBTQ plus advocates in Tennessee are fighting back against the rise in hate in that state. Here with me now is Inclusion Tennessee founder and president Phil Cobucci to discuss what the organization is doing to help the community on the ground. Hi, Phil. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Of course. Well, first, would you please share a little bit about your background and the catalyst for launching Inclusion Tennessee?
Yeah. So Inclusion Tennessee was born out of the what I'd like to say is a data dump, right? We tried to get an understanding of what our community needed in Middle Tennessee and Tennessee in order to thrive, and we did that study in 2019, prior to the world catching on fire, essentially with the pandemic.
Yeah.
During that 2019 study, we really got an understanding of where there were specific needs in our community. We learned that there was needs around healthcare navigation, and that there were needs around getting our organizations to talk to one another and work across silos. And then we also found that there was a real deep need for safe space in our community. And so while we took all of that research, we combined it all down, we distilled it down, and then we had the intention of launching efforts through pride organizations throughout Middle Tennessee and Tennessee in 2000, but obviously that world that changed, right? And so Inclusion Tennessee was born in 2021 with the sole goal of creating opportunities to connect people to programs and services throughout Tennessee in order to ensure that all of us can thrive and live successful and happy lives here in the South.
Yeah. Thank you for that. And would you elaborate on the legislative attacks against LGBTQ plus people in Tennessee and what's being done to push back? Also, how Inclusion Tennessee fits into that.
Sure. Yeah. So there's quite a few bills that are up right now and have kind of made their way through the legislative cycle here in Tennessee. Most notably, obviously, is the passage of SB1 and HB1, which prevents trans youth from attaining healthcare or accessing healthcare to aid in their appropriate transition as a resident of Tennessee. There is no form of access or provision of care after July 1st of this year.
Well, you have Love Rising, this incredible benefit festival coming up next week. Would you give a little background on that and how Inclusion Tennessee is fitting into that?
Yeah, so I mean, it all came together pretty quickly. And that's what's really exciting about this. We have, obviously, with Nashville being Music City, we have a lot of really great community partners and community organizations and businesses that have all kind of stepped up to the plate and said, we're going to help create a benefit for organizations that have boots on the ground and are trying to prevent this continued slate of hate in our communities. And so we are so thankful for all the fine folks at Looking Out Foundation and all the record labels and promoters and producers that they've pulled together for this amazing show that's going to be happening on March 20th. That will benefit all 4 different organizations that work actively to prevent slate of hate here in Tennessee.
Great. And I do want to just ask, because there's so many great performers, would you name some of them, please?
Sure. There's so many. So many. We're so excited to have Sheryl Crow as our headliner, but Maren Morris, Jason Isbell, Jake Wesley Rogers is another favorite of mine that I'm excited.
I love him.
So good. And there's just really there's a slew of amazing performers that are coming out to be present, and there's more that haven't even been announced. So it's going to be a great show altogether.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate it. Phil
Thanks.
Cobucci, founder and president of Inclusion Tennessee, thank you for joining me today.
Thank you.
Happy Women's History Month. Today we are celebrating journalist and activist Ida B. Wells. Ida B. Wells battled sexism, racism, and violence her entire life. She used her passion to shed light on the conditions African Americans faced in the South post-slavery. She also used her platform to speak out against lynching and worked actively for civil rights and women's suffrage causes. Wells also founded the National Association of Colored Women's Club. Her legacy as a pioneer for equality lives on to this day. That's all the time we have for this Advocate Today. Visit the Advocate channel on any streaming platform for Advocate Today episodes and interviews. I'm Tracy E. Gilchrist. I'll see you next time.